Everybody, welcome back to the Fearless Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Lynne, and today I'm very pleased to welcome on Chelsea Tanner. Chelsea, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I know you said, we just spoke a minute ago about how long we've been following each other on Instagram, and I'm so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, that's right. We've been following each other, I think, since 2020 at least. Mm-hmm. And you're a flutist and a mindset coach based in LA. Mm-hmm. And I've been following you forever, and I've always been really interested in your content. I think you're doing a great job of talking about mindset for musicians and everything that it takes to be on stage. And a lot of that stuff is what we apply to entrepreneurial skill set too, because if you aren't afraid of rejection, then you're never going to send a pitch. So please tell us a little bit about you and your work, and then we can dive in.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm a flutist. I'm a flute teacher. I teach privately. I am also a mindset coach for musicians, which is one-on-one coaching for any musician who maybe doesn't like their relationship with their instrument, maybe doesn't believe in themselves as much as they'd like to, even after years and years and years of training and school and experience. It can still feel very daunting to pursue a career in music and to feel confident in what you have to offer. And a lot of times I work with people transitioning from, school to post-school life, just because those things feel really different, and we're always preached at with scarcity, right? About jobs, about what's possible for us. And, one of the best things I found was coaching. And I thought, everyone needs to know about this immediately because it changed my life and my ability to be confident in myself. I think it's it's my favorite things to do are teach and coach. So that's what I do.
Oh, it's so great. And when you say coaching changed your life, I mean, the mastermind that we did, I was like, everyone needs to know about this. Deanna and I did a mastermind in 2019, I believe, with some of her Juilliard colleagues. Mm-hmm. And it was a small group, 4 of us. We talked through habits and mindset and discipline and resilience and a bunch of different things. And I was just like, this is so needed. And again, like what you're saying, the gap between studies and post-grad, like what do you do with your life after? Yeah, talk more about how coaching helped you with those mindset shifts.
Yeah, I think it first and foremost gave me a lot of clarity and helped me zoom out a little bit. I think in the music world, we can feel like, I talk about this sometimes about like looking through like a toilet paper tube or something like that. Like our career is this. And so everything that comes up seems really big. Whereas if we sort of like take our sort of tunnel vision down, we can kind of zoom out and say, oh no, I'm a whole person. I'm actually a whole worthy person, is in the world, and regardless of whether I play my instrument or not, and really kind of taking back power to say, oh no, actually, I like how I play. I like what I have to offer. I'm in integrity with myself. And people can like it. They can not like it. They can take it. They can leave it. And it's really empowering because I'm still going through the same trials anyway, right? We're still going through all of the same, whether it's competitions or auditions or job searches, whatever it might be, we're still going through that stuff. And if we don't believe we're a full empowered human, or we do, the results and behaviors and everything is affected by that. So I think the thing that really changed the game for me was knowing, oh, I love playing the flute. I do now still. Always, and we have relationships with our instrument. We don't always love what we do all the time. But I think that being able to take back control of that relationship and not have it be my only source of validation, really what, like on a deep level, was the thing that totally changed everything.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, so a couple things. You mentioned worthiness. I'd love for you to expand on that. And also like this relationship idea with the instrument. I mean, that sounds, I like that question. I don't think I think about that question enough. My relationship with the piano. Like it's another thing that obviously it's on my mind every single day. So it is a relationship, but I don't know if I ever framed it that way, but it feels safer to talk about it that way.
Yeah. So the worthiness component, I think a lot of times we conflate worthiness and our ability to play our instrument well, or even the rate at which people choose us for things, which is even more scary. But I know a lot of people think, oh, well, I've dedicated my whole life to this one thing and it still isn't good enough. And I can hardly think of a more painful thought than that.
Right.
So I think that being able to see ourselves as, worthy humans outside of our instrument, outside of the music world in general, is really, really important, and value that. I think we are so singularly focused for so long that nothing else seems to matter. And if we're sort of still swimming in that water and we don't zoom out and understand that, like, we were in a fishbowl in music school, for a long time, we aren't able to see that we're, whole humans that contribute to people's lives in meaningful ways outside of our instrument, with our instrument, and really choosing what we value on purpose rather than just going along with what we've been taught and what we've been told and what honestly we've been sold by the industry and things like that. I think that I had a client once say, I didn't come out of the womb playing my instrument. So why would I
Can you
think,
imagine?
yeah, I know, right? So like, why do we think that it's the gateway to feeling okay with ourselves? Like, once I get the job, once I do the thing, once I accomplish X, Y, and Z, then I can feel settled, which is a huge ask because that's not in your control. So it feels like we're never on solid footing unless we kind of make that decision and shift for ourselves, because I think that a lot of people tie their self-worth to, what they do, mostly because we're told you have to work the hardest, you have to want it more than anybody else. Like, we're told all those things, and I think that that other people in other industries aren't told that. And when we have our livelihood depending on how well we play, when we have all of these things riding on it, when it's supposed to be this like artistic expression, but we're in fight or flight all the time, that's a lot to manage. Like, if you don't feel safe to create, you're not going to create. And
Right.
you're just going to try to like hunker down and be as perfect as possible. And it feels very paralyzing in a lot of ways, I think, a lot of the time. So I think the self-worth component is huge, just because it's a point of operation. It's a way of viewing yourself that isn't talked about, because it's like a heavy topic. It's not talked about in school at all, and it's talked about a lot, I think, in, mental health, mental wellness spaces, but we tend to think that those two things are somehow separate. I think understanding that my body plays my instrument, everything I feel impacts how I play and perform and am as an artist. So taking the whole person into account is always, like, I think, just so important.
How do you begin to unravel someone who's coming in with all of these concepts put on them? Because there is truth in what we've learned in the fishbowl, and that's where things get confusing, because there is such a high standard. We have to know our stuff, and to learn an instrument, it does require everything that we have to give to it, right? So in one sense, you understand why we need to go through this construction layers of our formation to learn. But then at what point do we start to keep that zoomed out perspective like you're talking about?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I always kind of introduce as a concept is the idea of thoughts and facts. Like, we have an interpretation of every fact or circumstance in our life, and that makes us feel a certain way. The thing that's great about that is we get to have a say in what that is. We get to choose our interpretations of things and build different habits around how we respond. Mm-hmm. And our brain has learned without our permission, right? We might have beliefs about ourselves that are like, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. I'm just not the kind of person that wins auditions. I'm just not this kind of person. We have those stories for some reason. We didn't choose them. We were like, what thought I think I'm going to implement is this. That usually doesn't happen. We kind of pick it up, and our brain kind of makes it mean one thing or another along the way. And I think a huge part of this is having compassion for ourselves and noticing what is actually happening in our mind. Because if we don't know, we can't own it. So I think that a huge part of this is taking responsibility for our own mind, for our own thoughts, knowing that we didn't choose them. we don't need to shame ourselves for having them. It's not like they shouldn't be there. Anyone else in your exact situation would also have those thoughts, right? I think that what we could do then is look at the neutral facts and say, okay, how could this be just neutral? And maybe just practicing the neutral thought, right? I think a lot of times we go, okay, I need to reframe this positively. It's like, well, reframing it positively, you don't believe that yet. You believe the negative thing. So jumping to 100, that's why positive affirmations can feel empty sometimes.
Yes. Deanna says the same thing all the time.
Yeah. It's like, I don't buy it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not all of a sudden going to think I'm the best flutist that's ever walked the planet. Right. So I think going neutral is really great. Or even just a what if question in the positive. Like, what if it's possible that I'm wrong? What if it's possible that this story I've been holding on to, I'm not right about it? What if the people who have been like really encouraging to me are right? Like, what if that's true? Like, could that be true? And getting curious about maybe how that's true. Not to believe it and like from this moment on, I have to believe this or it won't work. Like, that's something I see a lot. We get perfectionisty about our mindset, but that's the thing that I feel classical music has really set up these expectations in the industry that are so sort of anti-human nature, right? Which is, okay, how do I control myself enough to be perfect so that someone will choose me and be consistent and all that stuff, instead of how do I work with my own body? Like, how do I work with my own emotions? How do I take my whole self on stage and still feel good at the end? And instead of, oh, I just have to be a flutist right now. I just have to be a musician right now. It's like, those two things I think are very different and go into, if I only think of myself as a flutist, I'm so much less happy. If I'm able to see my whole self. But I think there's room going to just stating a fact. Like, I just play the flute. That's true. I know I play the flute. I can do that. Right? I can make a sound on the instrument. I can, that seems very fundamental and basic and almost like you'd roll your eyes at saying something so neutral and true. But if that becomes our practice baseline for how we think about ourselves, then that becomes our habit. We can build on that. Because once that's believable and that's our baseline, then we can say, oh, and I actually like how I played this phrase. And it happens in little moments. I don't think it happens all at once. I think a lot of people think, well, once I get to the good enough threshold that's made up and imaginary, then I'll feel.
Yeah, let me know where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
then I'll feel good. But so much of the time, we can do this work very steadily, slowly, imperfectly, and it still works. It's not a one moment sort of thing. So I think going neutral is such an underrated thing because it kind of is boring. But I think relief from feeling all of that emotional pain is what is like the first step in the beginning.
I think this is extremely important what you're saying, because it feels safer to believe in neutral thought, because it kind of takes all of this emotion out of it. If you're like, oh, I'm not good enough, I can't do anything, you're like, wait, I can make a sound on my instrument. Is that true? Yes or no? Like, I learned this in therapy. First question, is it true? The thought that you're having. And if it's not, then we need to challenge it and start to pick it apart, because you're believing something that is causing you to act in a way that's not helping you. So I love that you're saying first concept is separating thoughts and facts. I love that. And then, making it neutral sounds way safer, because then it takes all of this kind of fight or flight, like you mentioned already, taking that out of the picture. Do you have some examples of transforming? It's funny because I made a post about this yesterday, reframing negative thoughts. How would you bring a negative thought into the neutral?
So this is one example, and someone in a workshop asked this the other day. They wanted to know about comparison, right? Like we always, that's huge. It's on social media. If we're on social media, it can be a lot to handle. I talk to people of all ages, seasoned professionals. I still feel not, they compare themselves, of what other people are doing. So I think that someone asked, okay, well, what about scrolling on social media? I tend to compare myself a lot. Then I said, okay, I have this exercise called the box of neutrality, and only neutral facts go into this box. So if you draw a box on a piece of paper, only a neutral fact would go in there. I think that practicing recognizing what is neutral and not is really helpful, because I asked this person who just gone through the workshop, well, how would you use the box of neutrality in this way? And she said, okay, well, what would go in there was, I can't do that. And I was like, we think thoughts are facts a lot of the time, you know? And I don't know, like, is it true that you can't do that? Maybe. That's very interpretive though. So I always put sound waves in the box of neutrality. My own, other people's, things I see on the computer. You know, I think the most stripped down to the most neutral thing, there are sound waves coming out of my phone. And my brain is having the thought that I can't do that. Right? So that's how it's interpreting that. So really saying, oh, I'm hearing sound waves on my phone. Like, even just practicing that. And if that's your main reaction, then you have this sort of like emotional sneeze guard. One of my clients called it that, you know, between you and the sound waves. Like, and so it's like, I might have a reaction initially, but then I'm like, oh, wait, okay, those are sound waves. And knowing and owning that my own thoughts are creating these emotions instead of some sort of like thing outside of myself is really powerful, because I can then say, oh, I notice I reacted this way and I tend to. What would be neutral? You know, what would be different? Could just be, oh, they made sound waves. I also make sound waves. And it seems so basic. But if that's the practice, then actually doing that actively every single time, if you go into studio class, know that there's just going to be a lot of sound waves. And then maybe putting them into categories of like sound waves, all the thoughts. So the box of neutrality, neutral thought goes into the box, and then all the thoughts about the thing go around it. Okay. So kind of brain dumping, like, oh, this means I can't do that. They're so much better than me. I'm never going to make it. They're so much further along. I'm behind. All of those things are not facts, right? And so being able to see, oh, this is how my brain is thinking about this. And if I saw this mindset, like a piece of paper, and I found it on the ground, like, this person would probably be pretty, like, they probably wouldn't be feeling very good. And I think that's a way to introduce compassion into the situation of saying, you know what, our brains are just taking in information all the time without our permission, and it's learning this stuff. It doesn't have to be that way. We can learn other stuff. That's the best part, right? We can rewire our brain to feel differently and respond differently. But it is, I think, a really important piece to not say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm thinking all these things. Like, of course I'm not successful. Like, that's just adding to it. But to come at the thoughts with neutrality as well. I think it's just such a practice in forming those neutral habits.
For someone who's stuck in that emotional, like, I'm not good enough, I'm too old, it's too late, like, do you find it hard to shift them into the neutral box? What are some of the pushbacks you get from people?
Oh, a lot of people find it very scary to think differently, because they're usually pretty successful already, right? They're usually people who think they're not successful but have achieved a lot of high level things, and they play very well, and they're, you know, they are high achieving, but they're like, wait, what the heck? This is not adding up. So the biggest pushback I usually get is not wanting to hang on to their systems of operation, whether that's like negatively motivating themselves, putting themselves down, because that's their motivation system. They're like, well, I'm not going to practice then. You know, well, if I change my mind, if I don't pick myself apart, then I'll never get better.
Right. Using shame as a motivator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I was there for a long time.
Oh,
Still am
yeah.
sometimes.
Right. Yeah, and so I think that that's a lot of why people hang on to these stories, because our brain isn't there for us to feel amazing on stage. Our brain is there to keep us alive,
And
right?
safe. Yeah.
Yeah. If it doesn't feel safe, self-doubt comes up. If I'm scared, I'm super mean to myself. Like I always know that. I'm like, okay, okay, I'm hearing all of these not so good thoughts. Underneath that is just part of me that's so afraid. Right? It could
Yeah.
be,
Wow.
of rejection. It could be of, not fitting in. All of these very primal things. Like we as humans survived in groups of people. So if I'm in an audition and I want to be part of the group and I'm now separated and this thing is my voice and it's all I've worked for, and it's like, and then we add all those pressures on top of that, like that's huge. I think it's amazing that we perform as well as we do a lot of the time. I think it's amazing that we've adapted as humans, but I think to be able to enjoy it is the part that I help people with. But there's so many levels to the negative motivation and the shift in perspective that maybe it takes a lot of courage and willingness to like let go of the old system and say like, oh, it's gonna come up still because our brains are habitual, we're still gonna have that programming, but like choosing something different is really, really scary, especially if we haven't done it before. Anything we haven't done before feels scary. But I think a lot of people cling to the oh, I just need to I just need to get it done, or I just need to do it, I just need to feel okay. But reframing of, oh, okay, well, how am I going to feel most comfortable tomorrow? Not like I just have to get it done to check off the boxes and no one can say I didn't do it and so I just need to do it. It's no, like I'm practicing for my future self
Yeah.
instead of to prove my future self. It's a really
Mm-hmm.
big difference in my opinion, because one comes from this, oh, I'm not worthy until I prove myself, and one comes from a place of self-love of, oh, I'm taking care of myself, the one who's going to be
Yeah.
on the stage. So yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to shift practicing mentality too. As someone who's struggled for a long time, I mean, I worked with a life coach for like 3 years consistently to try and beat this perfectionism thing that was
Yeah.
crushing my life. And yeah, learning compassion at the piano, trying to see myself as not being chained to this instrument. And it was just such an unhappy, I guess I can say, relationship, because I realized when she finally told me, you don't hate practicing, you hate how you talk to yourself when you're practicing. And I was like, oh, I never even thought about it like that. And you have so much self-awareness just to say, I'm being mean to myself because I'm afraid. I mean, that takes a lot of zooming out for you to be able to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that, because otherwise we could just get stuck in that spiral of thoughts. It's the programming that we hear all the time, like the tape, press play on the tape. It's the same thing over and over. So how do you help people take that zoomed out perspective? I mean, you're talking about reframing to neutral or like practicing for your future self. Those are beautiful ways. Is there anything else that you use with your clients?
Oh, so many things, so
Yeah.
many approaches. There's so many. I think that I think just to like share, my personal approach to this and how far I had to zoom out was practicing the thought that I am a human existing on planet Earth and my name was made up. Like it got back to that far where I'm like, okay, so if I'm just a human existing on the planet and I'm really zooming out that far, okay, I could kind of do whatever. And then all of a sudden, if that's my baseline and that's what I'm reminding myself actively and practicing every day, then I get to kind of build my days in a way that's a little bit more in control. But most people think, oh, okay, I just I have to get it done. And anything that's like a small task that's little like that, and we're focused in here, we can't see like everything else, you know? And so I think that zooming out really far, it happens as a choice in the moment where you're sort of, okay, I could just go back and could keep drilling this passage over and over and over and not ask myself. And it feels bad and we're getting worked up, right? Maybe we're tense. It takes a lot of like courage and a lot of like even just reminders. It could be a post-it note on music. It could be we have to like put in real life reminders. Our brains will forget, right? To choose like to ask yourself, okay, what's wrong? What's going on? And like actually answering and sitting with yourself through an emotion that might be painful. Sitting through and that's something I go through with my clients a lot is how do you process an emotion? Like how, like if I'm sitting there and I'm hurting my own feelings as I'm practicing, I instantly am like, oh no, okay, what are we doing after 5 years of practicing this, But it's hard to get to that awareness level sometimes. So I think like check-ins, if
Yeah.
you're in fight or flight in the practice before you practice, what are your preconceived notions going into this session? Is it going to be a good practice session? What are you thinking just kind of automatically? And then do you want to believe the thoughts that you're thinking? And, it's like you're going to think them. We have 60,000 thoughts a day we don't have control. But
Right.
do you want that? I think that's the biggest shift in agency is like, oh, I know my brain's doing this, but okay, what would be wonderful this hour? Like what do I think would be wonderful if this happened in the session, or whatever it could be. Because if we don't expect it, and I think this is so true in music too, like if we can't hear what we want to come out of our instrument, it's probably not happening. Like we say that
Right.
all the time, unless it's some sort of fluke. But I think the same is true in anything we do.
That is such a good example.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, but just yes. I'm like, it's like clicking. Yes, please.
Yeah, but it's like if I can't see or expect good things to happen, and I feel like buying into that is like lame or delusional or whatever, it's like it's exactly the same thing as thinking something not good is going to happen. So I think that sort of, and there's so many parallels with playing music and all of these things, which is why I love coaching musicians, because we understand practicing to such a degree. And I think that mindset is so much of the same thing. It's just shifting the focus and actually putting a little bit more weight on the mindset portion. You're still going to play notes. It's still going to happen. But to get to this place where, okay, I can practice these notes and still feel good. I don't know. I can
Yes.
still feel neutral even is great. But all of that emotional stuff that comes up, that is our relationship with our instrument. Pick up my flute. I know people who pick up their flute and their nervous system shuts down after years of being in fight or flight with their instrument, to the point where they quit, because it's just too much. And it makes so much sense. So a lot of what I work with clients on also in terms of zooming out is, how do I emotionally relate to my instrument? How can I rewire this programming? So I work from like the cognitive part of it, mostly what we've been talking to, the sentences in our mind, all of those things, but then also the emotional part of it too, which I think is not talked about as much, because we talk about the emotions we're expressing in music a lot, but we don't talk about our own in lessons or other things, but it affects us physically. So coming out and being able to see, oh, I'm feeling this way because I'm having this thought, and then being able to make a different decision or practice a different way, I think is really, really, I think it changed the game for me anyway. It kind of saved my relationship with my instrument for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what you just shared is so fascinating. Like, we've been trained in our lessons of your inner ear. Imagine the sound that you want to come out, and then you will play that sound, or at least a lot closer than if you don't have the sound in your ear. So how much more can we understand if you walk into a practice session? Imagine a great practice session. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What is that going to sound like internally? But I was thinking when you were describing this, the pushback from the perfectionist, it's just like, no, I just need to lock in and get this done, because that's what I know, and that's what's worked for me in the past. That's how we did our master's exams. It's how we did our juries. We just had to lock in and shut out all the noise and focus, hyper focus. But then it's either not sustainable, or you get out of school and there's no one putting all this pressure, external pressure on you, and it's a lot easier just to kind of give up on that. A lot of people get busy doing other things with their families or relationships or other jobs that come in to pay the bills, and then you don't have to work in this hyper fixated, focused way. So just imagining a great practice session, as long as you still get the results. I think that's the perfectionistic mindset, is like, yeah, but is it going to work? Am I still going to get better? Right? Because we don't know, because we've never tried it that way.
Right. Yeah. It takes it. That's why I said it takes courage. Like it's like
Yeah.
literally it isn't going to be, it doesn't, it's not going to feel comfortable. And I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, if I'm doing it right, it's going to feel better, And so people come to me and they're like, this feels unsafe. I'm like, I know, but it's this discomfort or this
Feels
one.
risky. Yeah.
Yeah. It feels super risky, but
Because
it's
you're like,
like
is this?
choosing the discomfort and delaying the gratification, just like we do in our practice room, right? But it's sort of, it's taking a leap. I always say you can go back. Totally fine. Like it's not like you're going to change this mode of operation forever, and like but I've never really heard someone be like, "You know what? I was kinder and more compassionate to myself and I hated it." So I think that, yeah, maybe looking at the motivation, but I want to also speak to what you said. It's like, why? Maybe this is going to be a great practice session. Like, what if this was? Like, what would that look like? And if you're in a neutral spot, you can probably get there. But if someone's going into their practice session being like, I'm so burnt out and I have like 4 gigs in the next week and
Yes.
I hate this, I'm
Yeah.
so done. Like, what that practice session might look like is, what if I was like so gentle to myself while I did this? What wouldn't it be amazing if I just felt a little like relief from the negative? Something like that, instead of saying, okay, I need to lock in and I need to just get it done all
And force yourself.
costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push through.
And I think so many people are like, oh, I don't want to practice tonight, but I have to. But it's like, if you have a great relationship with yourself and you're practicing, you can be really kind and gentle and be like, okay, we're going to get through this. We're going to do it. And be like a more loving voice and encouraging voice, rather than, I can't believe you can't learn this fast enough. Like, just stuff like that, which honestly, no one, if someone said that, like an external person said that, it's like, that would be really, really hard to work under those conditions. And so if we come at it from a place of self-love and compassion, of like, I want myself to feel prepared for this gig. So when I sit in the chair, I feel good with me. I know I'm feeling burnt out and I'm going to still practice, but it's going to be from this place of self-love and compassion, instead of like, I can't believe you haven't gotten this done yet. So I think there's 2 different qualities, and people tend to think that the faster you can get something done without thinking about the quality of how you're feeling is better. But looking back to the relationship component, we have emotional associations with everything, with every location, with every time we sit down with our instrument, we have an emotional relationship to it. Every excerpt, we have emotional relationships to like orchestral excerpts, right?
I believe it. I don't
it's
know,
like,
but I believe
right.
you.
But even just a piece, maybe like you
Yeah.
had a memory slip in a piece once or something like that. You have an emotional relationship with that thing because it elicited an emotional reaction in you. And so every time we approach our piece, like, you have this emotional connection to it. But if we go at our practice session, we make ourselves feel worse and worse and worse and worse, and then we're like, but I have to practice more and more and more and more, that's just going to lead to so much burnout and so much quicker. If we are cultivating a loving relationship with ourselves and our instrument and are kind and compassionate, obviously this is work down the road. It's not going to happen instantly necessarily, but it does take dipping your toe into compassion and kind of encouragement instead of anything else. So yeah, I work a lot with people on like their emotional and I don't know, mental relationships with their instrument, because it's like I think it's one of the most untalked about things. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so important. So, do you have any highlight client stories that come to mind if you think about people that you've seen transform, or any stories that come to mind?
Yeah. I had a client came to me. I think that this happens a lot. There's always this thing we have as musicians or artists, where when push comes to shove, we still just want to do it. We still want to play our instrument. And I feel like that I've talked to people. I worked at a company called Tone Base for half building the flute platform there.
Okay,
And
cool.
there's many adult learners on the platform. And they've like left their instrument, come back to it, but they have this desire within them to just like, they miss it. It's part of them. And I think that's a superpower we don't tap into all the time because there's so much in conflict with it. But I had a client who had gone to 2 years of music school and had left, went to a different career, and then said, okay, this thing is still tugging at me. Like, I still want to play. I still want to do this. But every time they would make a bad sound, something wouldn't go well, their nervous system just shut down and they just couldn't move, right? Like, they couldn't get out of that place. So practicing felt so terrible. So they were in this conflict. I think a lot of us get in like, I love this thing. This is like my voice. But the experience of it at the moment, like, I can't do it. It feels almost like I can't, there's no wiggle room. I can't change this. So what we did within just, I think it was just a month and a half program, is really relating to the practice session, to the flute differently emotionally. I think that's one of the most effective things, which is creating emotions on purpose, using your emotions that you have that live inside of you that you've experienced before on purpose. And in situations, being able to conjure certain emotions and associate them and mentally practice them. I call it like emotional rehearsal almost differently. So that visualization isn't just, oh, I played every note perfectly and I'm thinking about it intellectually. It's like, no, I'm physically feeling what I want to feel in that place for that audition, but in the warm-up room, in the practice room, wherever it might be. So that was one thing. And then that client actually went on to pursue music again.
Oh, wow.
Because they totally shifted gears, and that's a huge part of their life. So they they started taking it a lot more seriously and being able to create what they wanted out of it. So yeah,
It's so beautiful. So for anyone who's listening and they have this struggle, what is the first step? What do you recommend for them?
the kind of shutting down in the practice room,
Or just anyone who needs to kind of come into this gentle, compassionate way of self-talk in the practice room, or as you're pursuing a freelance career with all of the resilience and rejections that we face and the things we need to build, just I think cultivating this mindset.
I mean, I think the first piece is really observing your current mindset and owning it as your own. I think a lot of times it's like, well, I've had so many setbacks. I've had so many failures. Well, they didn't pick me, so I must not be good enough. It's like, you're allowed to think you're good enough and they cannot pick you. You're allowed to be good enough and then they didn't pick you. Those two things can be true at the same time. So I think it's creating space. I think observing, oh, if I have sound waves in this box of neutrality, what is my brain doing with that information? And getting to know that, but then also knowing that you don't have to believe your brain. Like, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. And that seems overly simplified, but I don't think we all know that. Just because...
we need to hear it again. I've heard it before and I need to hear it again.
Right? Yeah, just because we think something doesn't mean it's true. It might create an emotion, which makes it feel true. Right. But it doesn't mean it's true. So I think that that's a huge part of it. The second I've realized I was hurting my own feelings, I'm like, no one else is here.
The thoughts in your head are there, though. It's all the voices in your head you need to deal with, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's like, but those are all happening within me. No one else is in my practice room telling me this. Even if it's a story that a teacher said something to me, I'm the one repeating it. So owning that, not to shame anybody, but to say, oh, okay, this is what's going on. Okay. It's almost as if I'm like my toddler brain. I always think of it sort of like that. If I have a toddler, I'm I can't control what they do, but I am responsible
Right.
for them. So I think of my brain really similarly, where if like it's out of control, it's a toddler with a knife. I'm like, okay, oh, okay. You know, like
That's funny.
it's like you don't mean any harm. You don't know what's going on right now, and it's okay.
Right.
And that separation, that sort of writing the thoughts down, it's gonna feel really silly. But I always say, like, to get separation from the thoughts, writing down, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm never gonna be able to make it, or whatever mean stuff is being said, it's gonna feel really difficult. But as soon as you can see it, and maybe the next day you come back to it, you're like, wow, okay,
Yeah,
that's,
brutal, right?
yeah. And being able
To
to
read
have
that.
those moments where, oh, wow, that was kind of brutal, that's really powerful in recognizing, oh, that is what's happening upstairs here in my brain. I want to make a different choice. I don't necessarily want to be in that environment. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Chelsea. This is so much wisdom, and it's just been such a generous amount of knowledge that you shared with us. Somebody listening has one action point from what to do. Is it observe your thoughts? Is there anything else that comes up?
I mean, I think that separating the thoughts and facts on paper,
Yeah.
that's always such a good thing. If any of the like perfectionism, the thoughts of comparison, anything like that, saying like, oh, sound waves. What is my brain actually making that mean? Because a lot of times, like, we think it's a fact that we bombed that audition. We think it's a fact that we weren't good enough for this or that thing. And really questioning and observing, I think, is the absolute first step. I think it is hard. It's easier said than done. It's very simple, but it's not easy. But I think the more we're able to get our thoughts out on paper, we're able to, do that. The more agency we have in how we want to think and then implementing that. So,
That's so great. Thank you so much. And
yeah.
how can people work with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I'm at _ Chelsea Tanner. And you can my email's on there. You can DM me. And there's a link in my bio. All the stuff, the normal, the normal things. And I also, if there are any flutists listening out there, I have a summer flute studio that is going to be launching in the next week or so. That'll be on my Instagram for sure. And going to be incorporating mindset work, integrating it into practicing actively and working on that process in lessons and studio classes and things, and not necessarily just flute lessons, So that's
Good.
that's
Yeah, combining both.
the idea. So, and I'm available for flute lessons or one-on-one coaching if anyone's interested. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks everybody who's been listening. Make sure you screenshot this and share it to your stories. Tag Chelsea, tag the Fearless Artist. We will reshare it. And until next time, be fearless. Thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you.